Okay, friends from media house, ladies and gentlemen, friends, welcome to the Chinese Embassy and thank you for attending today's press conference. Some of you are my old friends. Some of you are my old friends and some are new. We know that the embassy and the media house are both working at bridges between China and South Sudan. From the embassy, you can know a better understanding of China. From you, the embassy and the world will have a better understanding of South Sudan. So the embassy would like to establish very cooperative relationship with media house in South Sudan so that to enhance the bilateral relationship between our two countries and serve the people of our two peoples. There are two topics in today's press conference. The first one is about Taiwan question. The second one is about projects to be implemented in South Sudan, aided by the Chinese government. Now, let's start the first topic. The first topic is the facts and truth about the Taiwan question. On August 2nd, in disregard of China's strong opposition and serious representations, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, visited China's Taiwan region. This is a serious violation of One China principle and the provisions of the three China-U.S. joint communiques. It has severe impact on the political foundation of China-U.S. relations and seriously infringes upon China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It gravely undermines peace and stability across Taiwan Strait and sends a serious wrong signal to the separatist forces for Taiwan independence. China firmly opposes and sternly condemns this visit and has made serious demarches and strong protest to the United States. A series of strong and firm countermeasures have been taken in response to Pelosi's visit. Reckless, irresponsible, and provocative visit. I would like to take this opportunity to elaborate on China's position on the Taiwan question to the South Sudanese people and media. First, Taiwan has been a inseparable part of China's territory for 1,800 years. In October 1971, the 26th session of the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 2758, restoring the seat and all lawful rights of the People's Republic of China at the UN. It has been a universal consensus in the international community that there is but one China in the world. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, and the government of the People's Republic of China representing the sole legal government of the whole China. The One China principle is the political foundation of bilateral relationship between China and 181 countries that have diplomatic relations with China, including South Sudan, United States, and other countries. Second, the U.S. constantly broke its commitment, distorted, obscured, and hollowed out the One China policy. The U.S. side explicitly declared in the Shanghai Communique released in 1972 that the United States acknowledges that all Chinese on either side of the Taiwan Strait maintain there is but one China and that Taiwan is a part of China. The United States government does not challenge that position. In the joint communique on the establishment of diplomatic relations between the U.S. and China, released in 1978, the United States of America recognizes the government of the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government of China. Within this context, the people of the United States will maintain cultural, commercial, and other unofficial relations with the people of Taiwan. In the August 17th communique, released in 1982, the U.S. explicitly stated in the joint communique on the establishment of the diplomatic relations on January 1st, 1971, issued by the government of the People's Republic of China and the government of the United States of America. The United States of America recognized that the government of the PRC is the sole legal government of China, and it acknowledged the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China. It also reiterates that it has no intention of infringing on Chinese sovereignty and territorial integrity, or interfering in China's internal affairs, or pursuing a policy of two Chinas or one China, one Taiwan. These commitments are crystal clear and inked in the documents. However, the US has not been faithfully implementing the One China principle and stipulations in the three China-US joint communiques. Over the past 40 years or so, the US has significantly eased constraints on official exchanges with Taiwan, and the level and frequency of bilateral exchanges have greatly increased. This is the breach of its commitment to maintaining unofficial relations with Taiwan only. In recent years, the US has doubled down on efforts to mislead the public in order to hollow out the One China principle. For example, the US is using more descriptions to modify its One China policy, including its unilaterally concocted Taiwan Relations Act and 6 assurances, which have never been recognized and are firmly opposed by China from the very beginning. The China-US relationship, as that between two states, can only be guarded by political consensus between the two countries, rather than be established on policy unilaterally formulated by the US side. It is the US who has been constantly reneging on its own commitments, bilateral consensus, and its original position. Such moves are aimed at obstructing China's peaceful unification by using the Taiwan question, undermining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, and building Taiwan into an unsinkable aircraft carrier to contain China with the Taiwan question as catapult. It must be pointed out that, be it the One China principle or the One China policy, their essence is both about one China. This is political consensus reached between China and the US. Without this consensus, China and the US couldn't have engaged with each other and established diplomatic ties, and the bilateral relationship couldn't have achieved development. Third, given that the United States has just spread disinformation and falsehoods, it is even more important for us to clear the air and set the record straight with facts. Question 1. Was Pelosi's visit an official one? No. Congress, as part of the US government, is inherently obliged to strictly observe the One China policy of the US government and refrain from having any official exchanges with China's Taiwan province. China is all along opposed to the visit to Taiwan by US congressional members, and the US executive branch has the responsibility to stop such visits. Since Speaker Pelosi is the incumbent leader of the US Congress, her visit to and activities in Taiwan, in whatever form and for whatever reason, is a major political provocation to upgrade US official exchanges with Taiwan. China absolutely does not accept this, and the Chinese people absolutely reject this. Question 2. Who is escalating the tensions across Taiwan Strait? The US. The Taiwan question is not about democracy. It is a mid-issue of principle about China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The visit of Pelosi to Taiwan is a grave provocation that upgraded substantive exchanges between the US and China's Taiwan province. It is a serious violation of the One China principle. It seriously tramples on the basic norms in international relations. It also seriously undermines China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We had repeatedly warned the US through various channels of the grave nature and severe harm of this visit. we made it clear that China will not sit by and watch. We will not allow any room for Taiwan independence. And all consequences arising therefore must be borne by the US. The international community had been warning the US of the potential consequences as well. Many people pointed out that the visit of Pelosi was a completely unnecessary, egregious provocation and could trigger a serious crisis. Sadly, the US turned a deaf ear to all of those that just let the visit happen. The current situation is entirely caused by the Speaker Pelosi and other US politicians and the US government. The US is the unprovoked provocateur and creator of the crisis. Taiwan is part of China's territory. There is no such thing as a median line in the street. The Chinese armed forces conduct military exercises and drill in waters off China's Taiwan Island to safeguard sovereignty and territorial integrity. Our countermeasures are justified, necessary, and proportionate, and there is nothing excessive about them. The US, as a provocateur and the one that caused the crisis, should and must assume the entire responsibility of it. It is worth to mention that the US and its allies often come to the adjacent waters of China, flexing their muscles and stirring up troubles. They conduct up to 100 military exercises each year. They, instead of someone else, are the ones that overreact and escalate the situation. Question 3. Who is changing the status quo of the Taiwan Strait? The US. What is the status quo of the Taiwan Strait? The status quo is that both sides of the strait belong to one and the same China. Taiwan is a part of China, and neither China's sovereignty nor its territorial integrity is ever divided. It is not China who is changing the status quo, but the US and the Taiwan independent separatist forces. Over the years, the US has been colluding with the Taiwan authorities and elevating its substantive relations with Taiwan. It has sold large amounts of weapons to Taiwan, amounted to about $70 billion, helped it to develop so-called asymmetric capabilities, and emboldened the Taiwan independent separatist forces. If these are not changing the status quo, what are they? Refusing to recognize the 1992 consensus of One China, the Democratic Progressive Party authorities in Taiwan have insisted on pushing for incremental independence and redouble efforts to remove the Chinese identity of Taiwan. If these are not changing the status quo, what are they? Question 4. Some in the US compare China's military drills in the Taiwan Strait to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which they claim will be denounced by the international community. It is absurd. Such a claim is ill-intentioned. The Taiwan question is entirely China's internal affairs. It is different from the Ukraine issue because Ukraine is a state and also a member of the UN. The US always stokes tensions and provokes troubles. Preliminary numbers show that between the end of the Second World War in 1945 and 2001, there were about 248 armed conflicts in 153 regions across the world, among which 201 were initiated by the US. Since 2001, wars and military operations launched by the US have resulted in over 800,000 deaths of civilians and tens of millions of people displaced from home. After starting so many wars and killing so many civilians to preserve its hegemony, the US is now creating troubles in the Taiwan Strait. How could we possibly allow this to happen? Never. Up to now, more than 170 countries and international organizations have spoken up for what is right, reaffirming their commitment to the One China principle and expressing support for China in defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity, and also condemning the visit of Pelosi. These countries, with their population accounting for 80 to 90% of the world's total, are standing with the Chinese people on the right side of the history and on the side of international equity and justice. Compared with this, the claim of the US and its few allies is very insignificant. That means the world international community supporting China is 170. Those supporting the United States is 7. 170 to 7. We can see that the supporting to the US, the so-called G7, is insignificant. China and South Sudan are good friends, good partners, and good brothers. Over the years, the two countries have established very sound relationship and friendship that is based on principles of China's Africa policy: sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith, and pursuing the greater good and shared interests. Pragmatic cooperation between China and South Sudan covers energy, infrastructure, agriculture, education, healthcare, etc., which have brought tangible benefits to the two countries and two peoples. Both as developing countries, China and South Sudan support each other on issues concerning each other's major concerns and core interests. China is a staunch supporter for the peace process in South Sudan and has provided badges of assistance for the implementation of the peace process, and South Sudan supports China on Taiwan question. In the wake of Pelosi's visit to Taiwan region, South Sudanese government reiterated its commitment on the One China principle and the policy of non-interference in other countries' internal affairs. China appreciates this very much. China, South Sudan, and the most majority of the international community are standing on the right side of the history and on the side of peace and justice. From the media, we all know that sometime or always United States and its allies, the G7, say that they are representing the international community. Is totally ridiculous and absurd. The numbers and the population of the so-called G7 is very small, very, very small. So they cannot represent the international community. They can only represent themselves, which are insignificant and be ignored. Now, the second is about Taiwan question and China's reunification in the new era, a white paper. Now, the white paper is on the table in front of you. I would like to brief you the main contents of this white paper. The name of the white paper is The Taiwan Question and China's Reunification, the New Era. In August 1993 and February 2000, the Chinese government published two previous white papers on Taiwan. These two white papers provided a comprehensive and systematic elaboration of the basic principles and policies regarding the resolution of the Taiwan question. As China's national rejuvenation had become a historical inevitability, we now have better conditions, more confidence, and greater capabilities to achieve national reunification. As China embarked on a new journey to build a modern socialist country in all respects, it is necessary to issue a new white paper on national reunification. The white paper was released to reiterate the fact that Taiwan is part of China, to demonstrate the resolve of the CPC, the Communist Party of China, and the Chinese people and their commitment to national reunification, and to emphasize the position and policies of the CPC and the Chinese government in the new era. The white paper gave a comprehensive summary of the CPC's resolute efforts, major achievements, and precious experience in promoting China's complete reunification. The white paper gave a systematic elaboration on the CPC and the Chinese government's principles and policies in advancing national reunification in the new era, and portrays the bright prospects after the peaceful reunification is achieved under one country, two systems. The white paper also demonstrated our strong confidence towards complete national reunification, our resolute determination in fighting against separatist forces, seeking Taiwan independence, and external interference, as well as other as well as our original aspiration in safeguarding the well-being of people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. Under the current complex international and cross-strait situation, the release of the white paper is conducive to exposing the Taiwan independence separatist forces' collusion with internal forces in making provocations, as well as their vicious words and deeds that attempt to undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, or stand in the way of its reunification. The white paper conveyed the CPC and the Chinese government's willingness to continue to work with the greatest sincerity and utmost efforts to achieve peaceful reunification and win over the understanding and support of compatriots on both sides of the straits, especially Taiwan compatriots and the international community. The white paper will help pour strength to advance national reunification. Peaceful cross-strait reunification is of benefit not only to the Chinese people, Chinese nation, but to all peoples and the international community as a whole. We hope Taiwan compatriots will stand on the right side of history, be proud of their Chinese identity, and fully consider the position and the role of Taiwan in China's reunification and rejuvenation. We hope they will pursue the greater good of the nation, resolutely oppose separatism and any form of external interference, and make a positive contribution to the just cause of China's peaceful reunification. We hope that the international community and all countries that have established diplomatic ties with China will abide by the One China principle, properly handle Taiwan-related issues, develop better understanding, and give more support to the Chinese people for their just cause of opposing Taiwan independence, separatist activities, and striving for national reunification. Ladies and gentlemen and friends, we are living in the 21st century. The world must never allow the US to see itself as a world policeman or an international judge and continue to treat other sovereign nations like George Floyd, as if the US can just bully and strangle them at their will. If China does nothing about the US relentless interference in our internal affairs and a violation of our sovereignty and does not firmly resist the US reckless and irresponsible behavior, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity and other purposes of the UN Charter and basic norms in international relations will become nothing but words on paper. The Taiwan question arose when China was weak and chaotic at the time, and will surely end with its national rejuvenation. China must and will be reunified. This is an unstoppable trend of history. Any person, any force, and any country that attempts to slow down China's development and obstruct the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation by provoking China on the Taiwan question and stirring up trouble for China will find their efforts completely futile and end up getting themselves badly hurt. Now this is my briefing, and now it's open for your questions. Thank you, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Thank you very much. My name is my question, this new development in China and Taiwan, why it's coming in this time? It's time there's war between Russia and Ukraine. There's a relation between the two or what? Secondly, as we see, the new development is oil-rich area unity state. There is no armed movement, and they pray the government that they will stop the oil, and they will maybe attack those who work in the oil field. And majority of the workers there are China. So, as China, how do you see this trade? Thank you.
Thank you for your first question. Just now, I give the answer to some people who connect Taiwan and Ukraine is totally ridiculous because Taiwan is a province of China. Taiwan is a part of China. It's not a country, not a state. Ukraine is an independent state and also a member of the UN and is recognized as an independent country of the international community. You know, some people, especially from the Western countries, tried to connect Taiwan and Ukraine together because their ill intention to create the two Chinas to expand the so-called international space for Taiwan, try to describe or portray Taiwan as an independent state is totally unacceptable. I think the Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Ma Zhaoxu have elaborated our position on this issue, and just now I also give my answer that is totally different, totally absurd. The second question regarding the conflicts in Moyama County Unit State, the Chinese embassy noted there are some conflicts and fights between the SSPM and also SSPDF, and there are some casualties. We are sorry for the loss of life, and also, as you mentioned, there are oil fields in Unit State about 70 kilometers around the spot of the conflict. We are very concerned about the safety and security of Chinese oil workers working there, and also the embassy shows our concern to the relevant competent ministries of South Sudan. And now I think the situation is coming down, and I believe that the South Sudanese government and the Ministry of Defense will have the will and capability to maintain stability in this region and protect the safety and security of Chinese oil workers. And also, as a staunch supporter for the peace process in South Sudan, we really hope that all South Sudanese people, all different groups, will come together to sit down to negotiate for peace talk, because South Sudan is one country and one nation. Peace and stability is top priority for development and for the well-being of all South Sudanese people. Why you fight each other? You should pursue and seek for peace. So that is why our wish that the unified forces will be graduated and deployed as soon as possible, so that the national army will provide security for the whole country to bring permanent peace to this country, so that no conflicts will happen again. Thank you. Please.
Yes, my name is Sandro. I work for Juba Agency. Since the extension of the transitional period last week, whereby the parties signed a roadmap, China has been quiet. What is your reaction? Yesterday we saw a statement from the UN, they welcome the move. What is China's position?
Yeah, I think the Chinese spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also gave a statement of our position that we have noted that all signatories of the peace agreement have reached a consensus for the extension of transitional period and reached a roadmap. Now the transitional period in South Sudan entered to a new era. We hope that all parties will join the peace process and will implement the roadmap of the transitional period in the earliest manner and as soon as possible. And China respect the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of South Sudan, and we will continue to provide support to South Sudan within our capacity and also with the international community. Thank you. Okay, please. At least I will send the statement of our spokesperson to you.
Okay, my name is Philip from Radio 9. Any questions? Part of the questions.
Military strength is relatively weak, so the Taiwan question remained up to now, mainly because the interference and obstruction of the United States. If there is no obstruction of the United States, Taiwan has already been reunified by the mainland. You know, the United States' intention on Taiwan is very clear. It tried to take Taiwan as a political tool to contain China. It wants to make Taiwan as an unthinkable aircraft carrier to stop China, to stop the development of our military and our development because of a so-called grand strategy of the United States to contain China. Because it does not want China to be more stronger or to surpass the United States. But Taiwan is part of it's a card of the United States. And so on the world, the United States said that it is committed to one China policy, but it tried every means to hold out the one China policy by enact so-called Taiwan Relations Act and 6 assurances. That means that through the so-called Taiwan Relations Act and 6 assurances, the United States tried their best to upgrade relations with Taiwan and also some official relationship, some official exchanges, and also by selling weapons, arms to Taiwan. Now its total amount is about $70 billion US. It used Taiwan as a cashing machine. And also the military-industrial complex of the United States earned a lot of money from Taiwan, like gangsters to collect protection rackets. So that is what the United States is the real intention: contain China with Taiwan and take money from Taiwan by enriching themselves. Thank you. For the,
There was a question about what next.
and the second question, you know, the white paper has expounded clearly our position on Taiwan question. You know, Taiwan question happened because China was weak and China was chaotic in 1940s, and because China was weak. Now, as development of China's overall national strength, as we proceed our national rejuvenation, now we have the capability, will, and every means to finish the complete reunification of Taiwan. Our will is to reunify Taiwan with peaceful means. It's our utmost wish, but we never give up. We never give up, or commit to give up to take back Taiwan by force, because there are some independent forces in Taiwan seeking for Taiwan independence. So we never give up the means of force, and we think in the near future, China will finish or complete our national reunification.
Your plan development for South Sudan for this year.
Yeah, I will continue for the next phase. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Awana Chen. I work for the Dawn. I just want to understand, what is the take of Taiwan's independence? They say that they want to be independent. And if they want to be independent, what is the China going to do? If you say you're going to unify, you're going to be independent. I don't know, how's the China going to tackle this issue?
I think China has made every preparation for the national reunification, and we have the capability and the will. And if there is some forces like Taiwan independence forces, separatist forces, trying to get so-called independence or making one China, one Taiwan, or two Chinas, we will resort to every means to finish our national reunification by all means. It's no doubt. Any more questions? Okay, thank you, brother. Then
this press conference is happening at the time when the U.S. headed on official, it's on a visit on the African continent, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. And part of this visit, it's a diplomatic visit, but again, it's also to look into the issue of China's influence in Africa in terms of development, especially on issues of resources. It's a kind of competition between the US and China. So how is this visit viewed by the Chinese government and people?
No, the US is an independent country. It has their relationship with African countries and with African continent. And for our part, for the past 66 years since China and African countries established diplomatic ties, we have formed very deep relationship, as we call it, three goods. China and Africa are good brothers, good friends, and good partners. The development and cooperation between China and African countries are mutual beneficial. So our African policy is based on what Chinese President Xi Jinping called the sincerity, real results, and amity. And during the past 50 years, China and African countries support each other because we have the same history, being oppressed by the colonial forces, and we have the same goal for development. So we help each other. And because of the help of African countries, in 1971, China restored our legal position in the UN. Because we got support of most African countries. And also China provided every kind of assistance with our capacity for the development in Africa, like infrastructure, education, trade, and also I can give you some detailed numbers later. So we do not want to compete with any country in Africa, and we hope any other country will not force the African countries to take sides. And African countries, the main goal of African countries is for peace, stability, and development. If all the countries outside Africa, their relationship with African countries is on this aim to help African countries to develop, to restore peace and development, we welcome. But if some countries want to take their visit or relationship with African country as a tool to sabotage the relationship between China and African countries, we will oppose it. And we will, no matter what happens, we will do our utmost effort to engage with African countries for development. As last November, the East Ministerial Conference of FOCAC, Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, was held in Senegal. That's our second topic. I will issue some developments. Chinese President Xi Jinping announced 9 programs which will bring very tangible benefits to African countries. And so now we are implementing the 9 projects with all African countries. So that's our real purpose, that to help African country for development together for China and African countries, not to engage with African countries with any strategic or political intention to take Africa to the so-called competition between major countries. Thank you. Okay, no more questions?